It's my great pleasure to be here with you this morning. I'm Leslie Greene Bowman. I'm the lucky person who gets to work with the amazing staff at Monticello. I'm the president of the Thomas Jefferson Foundation. And most of you know that the foundation is a private nonprofit that has owned and operated Monticello since 1923. And that story is a great one, but you don't have time for it this morning, so invite me back another time. We are so delighted to be co-hosting this conference on education in the early republic and the founding of the University of Virginia. I want to thank those who made this possible, first and foremost, our co-sponsors at the American Philosophical Society, Robert Hauser, Executive Officer, and Patrick Sparrow. Would you all stand? Oh, here you are. Sorry, you were over there when I met you. You moved on me. You can't do that. Let's give them a round of applause. Our keynote speaker, Alan Taylor, over here to my right, Thomas Jefferson Chair in American History at the University of Virginia. Now, you can hold your applause for the next one, because I'm going to introduce him in a minute, but it would not be fair not to credit Andrew Jackson O'Shaughnessy, the Saunders Director of the Robert H. Smith International Center for Jefferson Studies and Vice President of the Foundation. And we want to thank, in absentia, JF and Peggy Bryan, whose generous support of that center has really made so many of these events possible, and JF puts in a lot of time on the Board of Trustees at Monticello. All right, since 1987, Monticello and the University of Virginia have shared inscription on the UNESCO wall of World Heritage Sites. So that's 31 years. We were among the earliest inscriptions back with the Great Wall of China. Jefferson's work in that inscription was recognized as a masterpiece of human creative genius, and also that the academical village and Monticello together exhibit an important interchange of human values. I think you're going to be talking about values and genius today. So we consider Monticello to be Jefferson's autobiography. It's not a boyhood home, it's not a house he inhabited, it was his life's work. And the International Center for Jefferson Studies, which we affectionately shorten to ICJS, if you hear that acronym bandied about. At the ICJS, we support multidisciplinary research. It's a center that supports the ongoing international study of Jefferson and his world, disseminating findings through research and education, conferences, robust fellowship programs. Some of you, how many of you have been fellows at the ICJF? See, let's give you all a round of applause. All of that has really distinguished Monticello and the center around the world. The American Philosophical Society, now at this table, founded in 1743, the year of Jefferson's birth. It was founded, of course, by Benjamin Franklin, who preceded Jefferson as the president of it. And it was founded for the purpose of promoting useful knowledge. And it's the oldest learned society in this country. And their mission is sustained by engaging leading scholars, scientists, and professionals through fellowships, lectures, and public education. And I'm proud to say this is not the first event we've co-hosted, and certainly not the last. We are here because our vision at the Foundation is to bring history forward into national and global dialogues. Jefferson regarded the university as one of his three greatest achievements: designing his academical village from Monticello, watching that building of UVA through his telescope from the North Terrace. In the words of our board member, John Meacham, spending time at Monticello is as close as any of us can ever get to having a conversation with Thomas Jefferson. Monticello reflects his inquiring spirit, his intellectual breadth, his sociability, and his cultural aspirations that he wanted to inculcate in the graduates of the University of Virginia. Although Jefferson would rely on many other individuals for advice, and that includes, of course, two other presidents, James Monroe and James Madison, it's difficult to think of any other founder who was so involved in every aspect of the creation of a university, including, of course, its architectural design. My esteemed colleague, Andrew Jackson O'Shaughnessy, will share more about his current research into education of the early republic and the founding of the university. So I will just close by welcoming you to Montalto, and I'm glad so many of you were out on the terrace this morning. It is a brilliant morning. I think you've all gilded it by being here. And Montalto was, of course, if you translate from the Italian, Jefferson's high mountain. He purchased this land in 1771. It was his first land purchase after inheriting Monticello when he reached majority. And of course, why did he buy it? To secure his view shed. I would like to buy as much of your mountain as can be seen from mine, and a 100-yard boundary beyond. This house repose was not built until 1908, and we have restored it to be a center for dialogue on Jefferson's ideas. We all know this famous quote, but we couldn't start a conference on the university without it. As Jefferson once said, this institution, referring to the University of Virginia, will be based on the illimitable freedom of the human mind. For here we are not afraid to follow truth wherever it may lead, nor to tolerate any error, so long as reason is left free to combat it. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Andrew O'Shaughnessy, the Saunders Director of the Robert H. Smith International Center for Jefferson Studies.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm delighted to join Leslie in welcoming you here, and thank you very much for participating. I'm also delighted to welcome you on behalf of the American Philosophical Society, where Jefferson was president for 18 years. Leslie's already mentioned the presence of Robert Hauser and Patrick Sparrow, but we also have Barbara Oberg here, who's head of the Library Committee. And Barbara is also former editor of the Jefferson Papers and a real ally of the foundation. This conference was envisaged, obviously, as part of the bicentenary of the University of Virginia, but I thought when I planned it that it would largely be about education in general, because I never imagined that there would be enough speakers specifically on the founding of the university. And so I'm very proud to say that all of the panels, except the first, will be specifically on the founding of the University of Virginia. Fortunately, though, this is a two-part feast. There will be a second conference, which is jointly sponsored by us at the American Philosophical Society in Philadelphia on June the 7th and the 8th, and it will be on the topic of the spirit of inquiry in the age of Jefferson. Now, the event today also gives us an opportunity to showcase our staff and scholars at Monticello who are producing the definitive edition of the retirement papers of Thomas Jefferson. They've just published volume 14, which begins in February of 1819, literally almost immediately after the passing of the bill in the legislature to create the University of Virginia. So it's a key volume, as indeed all of the recent volumes are in the formation of the university. We indeed have an embarrassment of riches, which is why I've instructed the chairs to be draconian in enforcing a 15-minute rule on our speakers in order that we can have enough time in Q&A to really talk. It'll be a better conference for that. I'm also hoping in the questions and answers we might push our speakers to answer some of the following questions. One is, to what extent was Jefferson a pioneer in public education? What is distinctive about Jefferson's idea of a university? We often don't put it in a broader context of Europe and America. What impact did the university and his ideas on education have on educational institutions elsewhere? Do we need to rethink the platitudes about Jefferson, that he's a libertarian, when in fact what he was advocating was a massive expansion of government, admittedly local and state government, although he was an advocate of a federal university. And of course, his other great institution, we're delighted to have Rob MacDonald here, was West Point. Was Jefferson simply a man of his times in his views on the education of women and African Americans. How does the recent work on slavery modify our views and understanding of the institution? We anticipate on publishing this volume, and you'll be hearing more about that as the conference develops. But it's now my pleasure, since I want to keep to my own draconian rule, to turn to Peter Onuf, who will chair the first panel, who is the most influential scholar on Jefferson of his generation. He is, besides, a wonderful mentor and friend, not only to me, but to many people in this room. Thank you very much.